The Fuji X-H2S will cost $24.99, have a 26.16 megapixel APS-C sensor, but I didn't see any mention of BSI or Stacked in the leaked specs. Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. These full leak specs are brought to us courtesy of Digicami-info, and right at the top, look at the sensor. Effective 26.16 megapixels X-Trans CMOS sensor. No mention of BSI or Stacked. And this is a surprise. We've been taught all along that this camera is going to have a BSI Stacked 26.2 megapixel APS-C sensor. And this doesn't look to be the case according to, well, let's flash it up again. According to this information here, it's not going to be BSI or Stacked, but we do get confirmation that it has a UHS-2 SD card as well as a CF Express Type B card. And the file formats, no surprises here, JPEG, HEIF, 14-bit RAW, 8 or 16-bit TIFF, and the ISO sensitivity from 80 to 51,200, and video, of course, that's limited to 25,600, which is pretty common. Now, as far as the shutter goes, things are looking pretty good there. As far as shutter sync, we got 1/250th of a second, no surprises there. This has a mechanical as well as electronic shutter. Mechanical, 1/8,000th of a second, and electronic, 1/32,000th of a second. And now for the 40 frames per second. This was a pretty big deal when we got this leaked last week. It can do 40 frames per second. That is electronic. If we're talking about mechanical, it's max at 15 frames per second, very similar to the Canon EOS R7. But take a look under electronic shutter. What is 40 frames per second? You can do 184 JPEG images, 175 compressed RAW, 170 lossless compressed RAW, and 140 uncompressed RAW. And that's a pretty big deal. One of the things I speculated is, at 40 frames per second, what are we getting? Just JPEG? Are we getting uncompressed RAW? Are we getting lossless? So we can do 140 uncompressed RAW at 40 frames per second. That's pretty significant. That's pretty impressive. All right, now let's take a look at some of the video specifications for this camera. And we do get confirmation on 6K video. The Fujifilm X-H2S can do 6.2K at 24, 25, and 30 frames per second, DCI up to 60 frames per second, UHD 4K up to 60 frames per second, Full HD up to 60 frames per second, but slow motion up to 120 frames per second in 4K, and a staggering 240 frames per second in Full HD. It's using an updated autofocus system, their intelligent hybrid system. It's a combination of contrast and phase detection, -4 EV on the contrast, and sensitivity up to a staggering -7 EV for phase detect autofocus. And of course, it wouldn't be a Fuji camera without all their film simulation modes, 19 of them to be exact. But let's go back to these full leak specifications. I can't believe I was too late to get that full data sheet because I want to look closely at the sensor. Taking a look again here, we see no room for anything mentioning BSI or Stacked. Unless I see those words called out, I'm hesitant to call out that this camera is going to be able to produce a BSI or Stacked sensor. It looks like it's just a standard APS-C sensor that's 26.16 megapixels. That's a bit of a letdown. A lot of us were looking forward to this camera as having a BSI Stacked sensor, and according to the previous rumors, it was the HX2S that was going to get the BSI Stacked sensor, but not the X-H2. So what's going on here? What is going on here? Well, again, even up to the very last minute, these are still what I consider rumors, even though they're full leak specifications. They are in Japanese. We've done a machine translation to get you them in English, so there could be some errors in the translation, and I do certainly consider that a possibility. I've also looked at other sites, but nobody else has this information out, at least at the time that I was recording this. I was really super excited. I thought, like, great, we're going to get them tonight, and we did, and it's not midnight. It's only, what, 8 o'clock here, 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time? I was really looking forward to seeing those improvements in the sensor, BSI or Stacked. But again, let's have a bit of a reality check here. I've said this many, many times before. Individual specifications don't matter too much. And when a lot of people were saying, Canon, you fools, no BSI, not even Stacked on the R7 or R10, I said, well, look, let's look at these cameras in terms of the outcomes that they can produce. One individual specification doesn't mean it's worse than another camera. If you can produce the outputs that you as a consumer needs, so what if it's not BSI or Stacked? And we talked about this with the R7. It has a 32.5 megapixel sensor. And a lot of people thought, oh my God, they've recycled the same sensor. They haven't updated it. Well, they did do an update. They just didn't make it BSI or stacked. So when you look at the Fujifilm X-H2S, what I'm really curious to see is once this is announced, I want to see what Gordon Lang has to say about it. I want to see what DP Review has to say about this camera. But 40 frames per second, we really wondered about that in a camera with a sensor size of 26 megapixels. And we found out that yes, it can do 184 JPEG images, not a big deal, it's JPEG. And again, it is with an electronic shutter, so we want to see what the rolling shutter is like. But that it can do 140 uncompressed RAW, that's a pretty big deal. That's over 4 seconds of shooting. And I can only shoot on my R5 at 20 frames per second, but the amount of times where I held down that shutter for more than 4 seconds was when I was testing the Angelbird MK2 CF Express Type B cards. Otherwise, there's no way on earth I want to hold down that shutter for an extended period of time. I get it, there are some use cases, but most of the times when I was shooting at 20 frames per second, I'd hold it down for half a second, a third of a second, maybe somewhere between a half and a second sometimes, but it was pretty rare. So all these other specifications, the video, it sounds really good, right? We can do 6K up to 30 frames per second, 4K 120, 1080 up to 240 frames per second. But what is that new improved autofocus system is like? And even these leaked specifications, even though they've been machine translated from Japanese to English, they don't tell us what the end results are going to be. So even though I've broken this news about the Fujifilm X-H2S to you, there's still a lot we don't know. There's still a lot we need to hear from Fuji, and of course, waiting for the reviews. And I don't know how many reviews we're going to get. I'm pretty sure that DP Review, Gordon Lang, and a bunch of others have this camera. It's very rare that a camera company will say, yeah, we're going to make an announcement and we're not going to send the camera out to anybody ahead of time. It has happened, and in recent times, so I'm really curious to know. So again, the price is confirmed at $24.99. We're going to get the full announcement tomorrow. Again, I don't know if that's Japanese time. If it is Japanese time, it's already Tuesday, the 31st of May, which means that, who knows, by 11 o'clock tonight, 10 o'clock tonight, or even midnight Eastern Daylight Time, I might be producing another video with the full leak specifications. Either way, I'm really happy that I got this information out there. Well, at the time of recording this, nobody else has put out a video. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest news and information regarding the Fujifilm X-H2S, the X2, or any other camera manufacturer, whether it be Canon, Sony, Nikon, Pentax, or Olympus, or Lumix, go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you choose all notifications, because by choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish video, you'll get notified by YouTube, so that way you can stay up to date on the latest news and information. That's it for now. I got to get this edited and out the door. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.